What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Ladder Podcast. I am your host, Justin Strickland, and I am excited to be with you another episode. Hey, if you're new here, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Out of all, I'll be looking at my analytics. Most of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed. It's like 85% or something crazy. Hit that sub button, y'all. The content's dope. I want to make sure y'all get it. I'm releasing shorts. I got a lot more content coming. I don't want you to miss it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, okay? Today's episode is one that I probably should have did a long time ago, but we're here now. And so I am excited to do it for you today. We're going to do an episode, and I teased it. I remember I did an episode where I did my Mount Rushmore leader. And so I teased who's the greatest leader ever, but I never gave a full episode to the greatest leader ever. And so I wanted to take some time today to give a full episode on who the greatest leader ever is in human history. And if you don't know by now, if you missed the Mount Rushmore episode, the greatest leader ever is Jesus, okay? Jesus of Nazareth, the greatest leader to ever have walked the earth. And there are a lot of different indicators of that. One of them is we're still talking about him. And it was 2,024 years ago when he was born. Okay. Another indicator of Jesus's rank in leaders is that even people who don't follow Jesus as a Lord and Savior acknowledge the excellence of his teachings, right? Like, Muslims, in the Quran, it says Jesus is a good prophet. Hindus and Buddhists will tell you Jesus was a good teacher. Even most atheists and agnostics, they don't have an issue with Jesus' teachings and his leadership. They have some issue with him saying he's the only way. But as far as him as a leader, almost all people, regardless of their faith background, respect Jesus as a leader. And I think those are a couple of the reasons why we can look at Jesus as a leader and be like, yeah, he the best, okay? And so we're going to take some time today to talk about his leadership style and why it is something we should replicate today, because it's still useful, it's still impactful, and it's still, in my opinion, the best way to lead. No matter where you find yourself in leadership. And so I'm going to give you 5 examples of leadership that we can learn from Jesus and how we can take those and apply them to how we lead today. Okay? And so the first example that we get from Jesus, and admittedly, this is not a Jesus specific thing, but this is something Jesus also did that I think is the way we should lead. And Jesus was a disciple maker. And so the leadership principle is we need to make disciples. And that word disciples might trigger you if you're not religious. In case you didn't know, I love Jesus. I love the Lord. This is a Christian podcast. I talk about leadership, but we love Jesus on this side. All right. And so, but disciple is just student. It just means pupil. And the reason that this is a great leadership principle is Jesus took all the things that he taught, all the things that he knew, all his vision, all his plans, and he gave them to this group of people. He gave them to disciples. He gave them to people that he walked with every day, people that he was intentional with teaching often, people that got to see him in action in front of the crowds and behind the crowds, and people that saw him battle adversity, people that saw him respond to enemies or naysayers. All of these things that are super important in leadership, the disciples got a front row seat for. And everyone understands that if you being a follower of a leader is great, but if you get to do life with that leader and you get to see that leader in all these different capacities, that's exponentially better. It is way harder to watch LeBron James play. And I almost did it like the kid LeBron James. Watch LeBron James play and just take his film and be like, I'm going to become LeBron. That is way harder than what Bronny got to do. Bronny got to see his dad after games, before games, during games, in the game. He got to see how he works out, how he eats, how he breaks down his own film. Bronny has a much better chance to replicate LeBron's leadership, LeBron's skill set than anybody who has not had that up close and personal seat to LeBron's process. And so Jesus as a disciple maker and leaders, what we can do as disciple makers is we can ensure that the things that we are passionate about, the things that we care about, the platforms that we're building, that they extend past our own livelihood, which is, to me, legacy is the greatest thing a leader can have. And the way that you can ensure your legacy is that you make disciples. You bring people around you who take what you're doing and they replicate it in their lives and in the way they lead. They're not going to be carbon copies of you. There's only one you. But what they will do is take the tenets of your leadership, the principles of your leadership, the nuances of your process, and they'll apply it so that when people see them, they recognize, hey, Jesus used to do that, right? That's why you're loving your neighbor. That's why you're turning your other cheek. That's why you are preaching with power. Those are the things that Jesus did. And so they associate the people that are your disciples with your leadership style. One of my favorite things to talk about and think about is coaching trees. I love sports. I love to talk about this, but there are coaches that have coaching trees, and they have all these different coaches that came through their program that are now coaches, and you see their imprint on the way they coach. And you see they get a leg up as a coach because someone who came up under your system is also a great coach. But the ideal is that when you are a good leader and you peel back the curtain on your process and you allow people in, you are able to improve and extend your legacy as a leader. And I think that that is the most important thing a leader can do, is not only impact the now, today, but impact tomorrow. That is excellent leadership, okay? Number 2, repeat yourself often. Repeat yourself often. This goes with discipleship, but this is a second principle. When you have something you believe in and you have something that works, you have something that is true, that is right, repeating it often helps you be a good leader, because then everybody is clear on where you're coming from. Everybody's clear on what you stand for. Marketers talk about this all the time. Branders talk about this all the time. There's a reason companies have theme songs that aren't in the music industry. It's because by repeating it often, the reason they have catchphrases, repeating it often, what you tell people is this is who we are. This is communicated by good leaders. Good leaders come up with these phrases, with these words, with these ideals, then they repeat them often so that everyone knows exactly where they are and what they stand for. For example, if I start singing or saying, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, you expect to hear the Pop and Jake from State Farm to be in the room. And it's the ideal. What they're communicating is we are so close to you. You can always reach us. Anytime you have a catastrophe, a disaster, we are one call away and we will come there and come through for you. That is something that leadership came up with, that they repeat often, that is communicated clearly to not only the people that work there, but to the people that need their services, the people that are impacted by their services. If you are able to communicate phrases, sayings, words, ideals often, you will have a lasting impact. You don't even know who came up with that phrase. No, I don't personally know who gets credit for that jingle. But what I do know is that jingle is State Farm's. And when I sing it, what it makes me think about is that State Farm is there when I need them. And that's what good leadership does. Good leadership communicates an ideal clearly that outlives even that leader. And so when you look at the leadership of Jesus, there are so many concepts that we take for granted today that are Christian concepts that only exist because people attempted to lead like Jesus. And so if you go back, the ideal of public education and public health care, and you can do your research, those are Christian principles. They are ideals built from people who follow Jesus, who say, hey, taking care of the orphan and widow means providing public education. If you look through history, education used to only be for private citizens who had money. So the concept that everyone can be educated, everyone can go to school is a Christian concept. The concept that everyone can go to a hospital if they're sick is a Christian concept. That is a principle that Jesus taught, that Jesus had, that extended past, right, his own doing. Jesus didn't start no schools. He didn't start no hospitals. But people who follow his leadership principle were able to install these things that now we take for granted. And so that is what impactful leadership can look like in the next generation or 2 generations down. Number 3, follow through. All good leaders follow through. They all say what they mean what they say, and do what they said. If you want to be an excellent leader, you underpromise and overdeliver, right? You underpromise and overdeliver. You make sure that you never say anything that you can't follow through on. You make sure that you are very clear on what you can do and what you can't do and what you will do. Excellent leaders do that, and they do it well, and they do it often, and they do it in humility. Sometimes leaders get in trouble because they're trying to be more than they can be. They're trying to be in more places than they can. They're trying to handle more things than they can. They're juggling more things than they have the capacity for, and they end up over-promising and under-delivering. And they write checks that they can't cash. And what happens is people lose trust. Well, Jesus' example is, hey, y'all, I'm going to die and get up in 3 days. That is the biggest promise that you can make. And all of history agrees Jesus was not in that grave 3 days later. Okay? That is a historical fact, right? Now, what you do with that information, it's on you. I believe it's because Jesus got out that grave like he said he would. Okay? That is follow through. That is why the disciples who were scared of being murdered, they were scared of being killed, changed their whole lives around because they had a trust, because they saw Jesus follow through. And so when you follow through as a leader, it breeds trust for your people, and it breeds trust in your messaging, okay? Number 4, empower your people. You got to give them opportunities to lead while they're underneath you. Before they move on, they have to have chances to lead so that they can see how the process works for their lives. Because that's the thing. Until you try a process and you're just watching it, it all seems perfect and it actually seems easy. But when you actually have to go do the thing, you're like, this is a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And that's what good leadership does. Good leadership allows you to have those growing pains, to have those opportunities to stretch and to figure it out while they can correct you and while they can support you. So excellent leadership looks like giving your people opportunities to fail so that you can show them why they failed and how they can do better next time. Okay? I know sometimes leaders, we want to do it all because we want every single thing to be successful, but that's not going to allow for the expansion of your leadership. That's not going to allow for the growth of the people who are following you. And so if you want your people to grow and you want your leadership to expand, you have to create room for people to not be perfect. And then you come around and you follow up with them and you show them where they can be better because you're not perfect. Right. And when they think they have to be perfect to be you, they're going to become frustrated and they're going to be disillusioned with what it looks like to lead. OK. Number 5, and this is where I think Jesus really separates himself as a leader, is sacrifice. No greater love than this is a friend who will lay down their life for a friend. Jesus showed with his life, with his words, what sacrifice looked like. And what we call it today is servant leadership. The ideal that you would give of yourself before you ask of anything from anyone else. And excellent leaders do this so well that oftentimes the people that they're following tell them to do it too much. Like, hey, bro, you shouldn't even be doing this. Let us do this. And servant leaders are like, no, man, I got it. No, we know, we get it. You serve us first and we appreciate that. But there are some things that you need to handle, right? And so servant leadership looks like being intentional with your time, energy, and effort so that you are visibly sacrificing of yourself in front of the people you're leading. And the reason is because you want to be an example. If people never see you sacrifice, they think when they get into leadership, it's all about them. Well, servant leaders know it's not. Leadership is all about who you can impact and serve and how you can stretch that bandwidth every day, right? And so Jesus did a great job of modeling that. And as leaders, we can take that today and start to implement it. And I think servant leadership is the best form of leadership. And I think all the best leaders fall under that kind of leadership philosophy, if you will. And so I'm going to go back real quick over the 5 ways we can lead like Jesus, the 5 things we can take from his leadership example. And they are: number 1, make disciples. Number 2, repeat yourself often. Number 3, follow through. Number 4, empower your people. And number 5, sacrifice, live a life of servant leadership. Those are 5 ways that we can take from the greatest leader ever to become the best leader we can be. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that I'm praying that it was impactful for you. I'm praying that you can take these principles and apply them in your life today to become a more excellent leader. Shout out to Crew Excellence for joining us today. If you are new to Crew Excellence, welcome to the family. Okay. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'm Justin Strickland. I'm their host who's just trying to be like Jesus. All right. And I hope I served y'all today. Until next time, thank you for your time on the Ladder Podcast, and I'm out. Peace.